Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Netflix movie Triple Frontier. This movie starred Batman, specifically Affleck, Poe Dameron, Jax Teller, Sam Flynn from Tron Legacy, and the Mandalorian himself, all in the same movie. Now this whole lineup kind of reminds me of what the studio system did at the end of its lifetime, back in like the 60s, going into the 70s, where they would just get like big movie star, like Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner, and cram them all into like one movie and just hope that it worked out. So what we're going to explore with this movie is whether or not this movie is good on its own merit, or if it simply relies way too much on its star power. Now, before we get started, if you like the content that I produce, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the BitChute channel. It's a small click for you, but for a small channel like mine, it helps out a lot. Like, comment, and share the video around only if you want to. Follow me on the blog and social medias. Links to all of that are below in the descriptions. So with that out of the way, let's tear right into Triple Frontier. As always, I start off by looking at the creative team behind the movie. Now, this movie was directed by J.C. Chandor. Now, he's one that most of you guys probably have never heard of, but he's directed movies such as Margin Call with Zachary Quinto, Kevin Spacey, and Jeremy Irons. I actually really dug that movie. All Is Lost with Robert Redford, A Most Violent Year with Oscar Isaac, and he is announced to direct the Kraven the Hunter movie for Sony. Now, for Spider-Man fans, you know who Kraven the Hunter is. For those of you that are not Spider-Man fans, I'm not going to go into it here because otherwise I would be here for the next like 20 minutes explaining, Kraven the Hunter, and the most famous storyline, I think it was Kraven's Last Hunt. So, instead of tangenting, I'm just going to move on to the writers of the movie, and, the first writer obviously being J.C. Chandor. Now, his writing credits include Margin Call, All Is Lost, and A Most Violent Year. And the next writer is Mark Boal. And most of you might have heard of him because he famously teamed up with Catherine Bigelow as a writer-director team about, probably 10, 15 years ago. Catherine Bigelow does also serve as one of the EPs on this movie, so there you go. That partnership is still there. Mark Boal has written movies such as The Hurt Locker with Jeremy Renner, for which he did win an Academy Award for at the time, Zero Dark 30 with Jessica Chastain and Joel Edgerton, and Detroit with John Boyega and Anthony Mackie. Now, my main issue with Mark Boal as a writer is his scripts are too overbloated for their own good. And a perfect example is look at The Hurt Locker. The vast majority of that movie, in my opinion, and this is not majority opinion, there isn't jack fucking shit that goes on in The Hurt Locker. And both Zero Dark 30 and Detroit, well, Zero Dark 30 is also boring, and Detroit was simply like about probably 30, 45 minutes too long for its own good. Same with Zero Dark 30. So yeah, that's going to take care of the creative team. Now let's move on into the character analysis portion. Now, with this type of movie being more of a heist movie, it's going to be more character-driven than narrative-driven. So if you fail here, your movie fails entirely. So let's start off with the brains of the operation. That was Oscar Isaac as Pope. Now, like I said, he was the brains of the operation. Every job needs a leader. He sold the rest of the team's basically snake oil by telling them that he had made a deal with the agency that he was working with to steal the money when no such deal was in place. Basically, he just wanted to cripple the drug lord and get the fuck out. Simple plan, but as the movie unfolds, for those who have already seen it, you know that it goes tits up, and we will get to that in just a couple of moments. Next up is Charlie Hunnam as Ironhead. Now, he was one of the triggermen, and you always need him in a heist. You always need one or two triggermen. Now, in the real world with this character, he was giving presentations to Special Forces guys, basically telling them about how they will be headhunted by the private sector because of their training, and basically don't take it. It's not worth it. They're going to fuck you over in the end, blah, 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 blah. Then we have Garrett Hedlund as Ben Miller. Now, he was the brother of Ironhead that was training to become an MMA fighter. He was the other triggerman in the heist. You have Pedro Pascal, who is currently playing the Mandalorian, as Catfish. He's simply the pilot with the cocaine problem. And that's really all there is to this character. He's just a supporting role in this movie and really nothing more. Then you have Adria Arjona, and I know I'm going to mispronounce, I mispronounced that name poorly, but ask me if I care. But she plays the character of Yovana. She's the woman that helps the five guys break into the drug lord's house and steals the money. And she only did it to get her and her brother out from under him. And she actually made out better than the rest of the guys who carried out the heist. And we're going to get into that right now. And we're ending with Ben Affleck as Tom Redfly Davis. Now, he was the guy who was dragged out of retirement to do this, do the one final job to set him for life type of thing. Anyone who's ever played Red Dead Redemption 2, one final heist, Arthur. Then 5 minutes later, we need more money, Arthur. Now, he was more of the supervisor for the whole ordeal. And my problem with this character is when you watch the movie, is where he failed, he succeeded. It was his greed that made the operation go south because, okay, they have a strict time schedule. Whatever they can get out of the house by this time is what they keep, and then they have to go. No, he had to get more money out of the house, and the entire thing went tits up. And he was the only character that got killed as a result. And the other four guys at the end of the movie basically just decide to forego the money that they all got out of it and put it in the trust to give to his kids. Now, it sounds noble on paper until you remember that he was the reason that the operation went south. So this character in the end suffered absolutely no consequences other than death. And the other four guys basically punished themselves for no good reason. If I were the other four guys, take the money and run. Why are you gonna give this guy who caused your entire operation to go south all the money? Take the money and run. This character basically became a Gary Stu. And for those that think that Mary Sue's and Gary Stu's have to be absolutely perfect at everything, no, they don't have to be. And this is a perfect example. They could not stay mad at this guy at the end of the movie, despite the fact that it was his greed that caused the entire operation to go south, and his greed that caused him to lose the vast majority of the money. So that's basically a Mary Sue or Gary Stu, is that, they're just perfect at everything. No, not always. Now, like I said, this type of movie relies more on its characters than its narrative, but we're still going to do a basic narrative analysis. And basically is that the narrative is that it's 5 former special ops guys plan a heist to rob a drug lord of his money. Things go south and they have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. It's a great idea on paper that has been done before. And the 2 examples I think of are Black Sea with Jude Law, despite the fact they were not military, and Reindeer Games with Ben Affleck, the latter being a shitty movie, the former actually being quite a decent movie. Now, I've already brought this up in the character analysis portion, but yeah, how does the heist go wrong? One guy gets too greedy, and later in the movie he dies. They took too much money, so the load had to get dropped from the helicopter. That led to a fight with cocaine farmers that came back to bite them later. And at the end, they robbed close to $250 million at the movie. And at the very end of the movie, each of the 5 guys only had about 1.5, 1.6 mil each to split. So that's about 95, 97% of the money just basically disappeared. And the funny part is the woman that helped him in the very beginning got a much better deal than the other 5 got, because they basically just gave her a duffel bag of $3 million and basically told her leave South America forever. So yeah, if I were one of those 4 guys, I would think I took a raw deal. But remember, we can't stay mad at the guy who got too greedy and caused the entire operation to go tits up. No, because think of the children. Now let's take a look at how this movie was received. And keep in mind, because this movie is on a streaming service, Netflix, they don't have to report the budget. So I'm only going based on what is shown from a few different sites. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' rating for this movie, the tomato meter score, is 70% based on 132 critic reviews, with the critics' consensus being, quote, an outstanding cast and ambitious story help Triple Frontier overcome an uneven narrative and elevate the end result above a crowded field of grim and gritty heist thrillers, end quote. That's okay. Everyone's allowed to be wrong a couple times in their life. And this movie has an audience score of 55% based on 2,034 audience reviews. This movie has a Metacritic score of 61 based on 26 critic reviews, and a user score of 6.9 out of 10 based on 215 ratings. This movie sits on IMDb at 6.4 out of 10 based on 103,873 reviews. And in July of 2020, Netflix confirmed that the movie had been seen by over 63 million users since it released on March 13th, 2019. And of those 63 million, 52 million watched it during the first month of its release. Now, I'm going to end off this episode with this. This movie isn't terrible, but it's not great. And a lot of that has to do with the ending and the way that they handled Ben Affleck's character. Now, if you want to watch a movie that does this premise a lot better, of basically steal all the money and, you know, split it 5 ways, the job to end all jobs, watch the movie Black Sea with Jude Law. It's 10 times better than this. And personally, I'm never going to rewatch this movie because I believe that there's no rewatchability to this movie. And if there's one thing that this movie proves to me, is that one badly written character in a character-driven movie can ruin the entire movie for everybody.